this is what day 2 looks like. We got this thing going last night, and now we're on to this morning. Actually, it wasn't last night. It was yesterday, mid-afternoon. And you can see it's definitely doing a lot more bubbling. So, yay. So this is what I have after a full 24 hours of fermenting. As you can see, the bubbles are coming much more rapidly now. And then also the color has changed a bit. So I don't know, it could just be me, but it looks a little bit lighter than it was. Obviously cloudy. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on this and I'll let you know. Okie dokie, so it has been a little over 48 hours, about 2.5 days. You can see that the bubbling has slowed down quite a bit. So we are just going to replace this hose and tubing with the airlock. Alright, so this part's pretty simple. We're just gonna pop this tubing out. I will remove that in just a bit. I don't want to make a mess. And then I grab my airlock. If you can see the line, there is a line. So I filled it to the line with sanitizer. And then that goes in there. This little doohickey floats on top. And then we seal it off. There we go. Alright, 10 more days and we'll be ready to bottle. Good morning. So we are on day 7. So it was 7 days ago that we added the yeast and put everything into this initial setup here. If you remember, 2 days later, we went and changed out the tubing for the airlock, and it's been pretty minimal as far as the bubbling. So the most active part of that fermentation process really was over. So differences I've noticed, it's definitely starting to clear up a bit. So that makes me a bit more optimistic that I will have a nice golden colored sparkling cider and not something opaque and fuzzy. And if you look really closely, you can start to see that a lot of that yeast and I guess sediment has kind of fallen to the bottom. So interested to see exactly what that is. I'll probably do a bit more research and find out. But yeah, day 7, folks. Okay, so it is actually way past day 10, day 14 or so, and we are going to get ready to bottle. So just before I did that, I just kind of wanted to show you the difference in coloring that it kind of took on, and then also what that sediment towards the bottom kind of looks like. Very little bubbling, and that's about it here. So yeah, that's it for now. I'm going to come right back, show you the bottling process, and I don't know what else. And action. Sorry. So, hey, good evening, everybody. This is Rashonda Grant with the Carolina Cookery, coming back to you for part 2 of our sparkling wine tutorial. If you do recall, I bought this very lovely kit I got it from Home Goods, but it's actually made by the fine folks over at Brew Shop, and it's everything you need to make sparkling wine. So if you haven't seen part 1 of the video, definitely check that out. I'll make sure to link it in the comments below, or I'll post the link below. But also, so you can see everything that we did in the first half of this tutorial. But all of that brought us to where we are today. So that's part 2. It's been about 2 weeks since we did our initial mixing, brewing, and fermenting. And that has left us with this lovely batch of what you see here. So in here we have our Chardonnay juice, our yeast nutrient, and some water. And it's been allowed to ferment for about almost 2 weeks now. In the instructions, it tells you everything that you need to do when you mix it, which I did on a Sunday. And then it tells you on day 2 we switched it out and changed out the tube with this airlock here. But then it says 10 days later, so I don't know if that's 10 days from day 1 or 10 days from day 2. So if they're watching, it would be helpful to get some clarification on that. So here we are now removed 10 days from day 2, putting us at a total of day 12. So our first step is to remove this airlock. Easy enough. And I'm going to go ahead and set it aside because we are done with that more or less. And next thing I need to do is measure the gravity of the liquid that's in this container now. That's just going to measure, I think, the sugar content that's still in it, and that just tells us how much work the yeast has done. It's also going to help us to determine the final alcohol content in our sparkling wine. So this process, if you've already seen part 1, is going to look very familiar. We have a very lovely sterilized cylinder here, and we are going to go ahead and fill that up. I got to stop that. So this has been soaking in sanitizer, and we're going to go back to our old school straw and dip removal. Now the thing is, you want to be careful doing it this time, because now all that fermented yeast is in the bottom, and you definitely don't want to soak that up into your measuring mixture. Ooh. So this is going to be fun. So now that that's done, we have measured our gravity, and you want it to be below 1.0. If it's not below 1.00, then the instructions say give it a couple more days until it is below 1.00. Ours is just under 1.00. Yeah. Looks like 0.995. So that's good. I will make a note of that number. Yeah. So we're going to make a note of that 0.995 number. I'm going to set this aside so you guys can take a look at it and get a close-up. But that means we are ready to bottle. Okay. So as I mentioned in the first video, this kit does not come with sparkling wine bottles. So I acquired. My roommate was kind enough to help me empty some sparkling wine bottles. And so I have that for you today. My roommate and my friend April. Shout out to April and Natalia for helping me to get these bottles emptied. So to sanitize them, I did go ahead and peel and remove the labels from each of those, and you can kind of see that here. It does also mention in the instructions that you want to have sparkling wine bottles, not just regular wine bottles, because they're thick-walled, and they're thick-walled, and they are going to be able to withstand the carbonation a little better, or a lot better than if you were to get just your regular wine bottles or another dark green wine bottle. So be sure to get ones that have held sparkling wine. I could have also just ordered them online, but where's the fun in that? It wouldn't have come with mimosas, and these did. Way more fun getting them this way. To clean them, like I said, I just peeled the labels off, wiped them down with some goo remover to get all that excess stickiness off, and then I placed them in the bottom drawer of the dishwasher and on a heated dry. So that helped to get them clean. And then I still use the sanitizer that comes with it. So I had the half a pack of sanitizer left over from last time, mixed it with 1 gallon of hot water, put a little bit, using the funnel, just poured a little bit into each one of these, shook it really well, let it sit for about 2 minutes, rinsed it out with cold water, and then let them dry in a drying rack. So mine are good and clean. No leftover Prosecco in any of these. So now they're ready to get filled with our own special homemade version. So setting that aside, I am going to try to very carefully set this aside somewhere where it won't get hurt. Not overly optimistic about that, guys. And this next part's a little interesting. I also went ahead and sanitized the tubing again. as well as all the corks that we're going to be using. And this little dooflunky, it's got a name. I don't know what it is. I also think there's probably something more I'm supposed to do with this, but we shall see. All right, so the next step seems fairly easy. We remove this little knob and we start playing a sort of weird connect the dots sort of thing. So this little black piece that has no name connects to this that we've been using and dipping with all along. And I guess it creates some sort of drain of sorts that keeps it from sucking up all the zhuzh from the bottom of your sparkling wine. Oh, stop, pause. So, our next step, we're gonna set that aside for a second. Next step is to mix 7 tablespoons of sugar. It does say to put it in a pot. I don't know why. Half a cup of water. And give this a good stir until it is completely dissolved. Maybe that's why it's supposed to go in a pot. siphoning. We're siphoning. Ew, am I siphoning crud? I might be siphoning some crud. Cool, cool, cool. I'm just let that go. Look, I wish I could show y'all this part. So please excuse my mess, but I really wanted to give you guys a close-up of what's happening here. So it's siphoning up from the bottom here, and I'm kind of getting to the end of it, so it's not so pretty. And then it's coming up and out this tube and into my pot. And that's where that sugar water mixture is. And I'm just trying my darndest not to get any of that yeast that's on the bottom. So I'm going to pause and be right back with you once I'm done with this step. All right, so now that I know a bit more about what's involved and how that process works, we have moved to the kitchen where I can do it just a little bit more cleanly. And so we've got our fermented juice and sugar water mixture in this container. I have it elevated just on a little flower pot I had laying around, so hopefully that will give me just enough height to get it down and into these bottles. And we're going to do a very similar siphoning process to what you saw earlier, except we're not going to be using the L-shaped tubing, just the malleable plastic tube, and hopefully get all of this into bottles. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we are down to our final step. As you can see, I have my 4 bottles here. And yes, I said it a couple times. I'm gonna say it again. The kit does say that it can make up to 5 bottles of wine, of sparkling wine. I've found that I had a lot of waste just in the bottling process, which I kind of accounted for. And then plus there is still some left here in this growler, but it's all cruddy. I don't know what's gonna happen with that. So I don't think it's worth bottling. So maybe if once I get the hang of it and if I did it again, I would have figured out a way to kind of account for that waste and maybe get a whole 5 bottles out of it. But we're not gonna, I'm not mad about it. So we have bottled our wine. I will also say that whole siphoning and tubing process is overly complicated. Yes, I would do it for the growler to get it out and to make sure that I left that sediment in. It did give me a lot more control. But once I got it into my pot with some sugar water, I did the first 2 using the same siphoning method, and it was kind of a mess. And then once I got to the bottom just of the pot, just controlling it and make sure that I didn't get any air into my vacuum and siphon, and it was a mess. It was really literally easier to just put a funnel in the bottle and fill it up. I don't know why they make it so hard. I'm sure that works better for beer or something that's already been brewed and whatnot, but for me, funnel, done. So yeah, so all the bottles are filled. They're up to like right about here. Again, something I wish that the instruction had given me a little more clarification on is, do I fill it all the way to the top? Do I leave some room for carbonation? How's that gonna work? I don't really know. We're just gonna see. But yeah, so we've got our corks that have been cleaned and sanitized as well. And the instructions just say to push it down as far as you can. This is a gosh darn nightmare. Okay, that is not fun. Let me get some. Okay, nope. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right, got that in as far as it will go. Oh, there we go. That's 2, and nope, no twist on that one. Ooh. Okay. Starting to take a toll on my hand here. Yep. There we go. And last but certainly not least. Whew. Part of me is like, now I'm like, did I do this right? Why is this so hard? I think it's harder the more you do. Don't judge. So yeah. All right. Whew. All right, so we have all 4 of those secured. I'm going to top them off with our wire cages. And then for this next part, I want to make sure I give you guys a close-up, because I'm going to pull all that excess this away and then give it a twist to make sure that it is down and over the lip of my bottle. Oh my goodness, y'all, look at my hand. It's so bruised. But yeah. Oh, you know why? Because it's not all the way down. There we go. All right. So that is secure. You see I have that wire coming just under the lip of that bottle. So even as that pressure builds and tries to push the cork out, this wire is going to keep it from popping up and going over. And then we're going to do that 3 more times. Okay. Wrapping up my last one. Little thing I've noticed as I've been doing it is just to kind of pull it back. Sorry. So pull these other wires and give them a twist. All right. And that is it. And now we wait. So I have all of my lovely Prosecco all bottled up. I'm going to give these a good rinse because they did get covered in juice as I was bottling. There was some spillage. So everything is a nice sticky mess. So I'm going to give it a wipe down, and I will try this in about, I think it says 4 to 6 weeks. Hey everybody, this is Rashonda with the Carolina Cookery, and we are back for part 3 of my Brooklyn Brew Shop Sparkling Wine Kit review. So in part 1, we went through the whole pitching of the yeast and all that process and just the brewing process. Part 2, which is attached to this video as well, we went through the bottling process, which was not fun. And now we are down to part 3, which I've been most looking forward to, and that is the poppin' bottles portion of the video. So what I have today is, this is one of the bottles we made. Just to kind of recap, if you saw from the bottling video, I only got away with 4 bottles of sparkling wine, or at least 4 that actually went into bottles. I think that was because of a couple of reasons. The first of which being, if you remember back to part 1, I didn't quite fill it up to the 1 gallon mark with enough water to begin with. So there's that. And then also there was just a lot of spillage as I was doing the bottling process. So a lot that kind of just got discarded in the bottom that had that yeast and other part that we didn't want to soak up. And then I think the third reason being, I definitely overfilled some of these bottles as I was pouring. The instructions weren't very clear about how much to fill up your bottles or kind of how much to put in each bottle. You just really were left to guess. And this is one that I had purchased just from the local Sam's Club. It's a really inexpensive Prosecco, kind of tasty. And it's filled to right about here. Most of my bottles are up to here, and then some of them I kind of overfilled just because getting the hang of that spillage. So just to kind of give you a clue as to why I got away, or why I ended up with fewer bottles than the 5 that it says. So I think if I do this again, which I'm planning to, then I'll definitely just, some things that I know for next time and some ways that I already know that I can refine it and move forward. So now, I didn't do any close-up pictures, and I probably should, and maybe I will when we're done here. Both of these bottles have been chilled. Just from observationally, you can't see it, and I really did try to like get it on film, but things that I have noticed is like if I hold both bottles up to the light, the store-bought Prosecco is still, you know, it's very clear, just really what you're used to when you think of sparkling wine and sparkling Prosecco. The one that I have that we made is still really cloudy, kind of like what we saw in the, just in the brewing process and even in the bottling process. I did talk to my roommate who happens to be studying for her sommelier exam. Not just like, oh, I talked to my roommate, she drinks a lot, but no. So I talked to my roommate just kind of about the bottling process and why mine was still cloudy. And one of the things she just, you know, helped to educate me on was in the actual champagne making process, or the, you know, the traditional French champagne making process, there is a second corking process. So the bottles are stored, they're inverted. They actually probably use like a typical cork as opposed to the plastic ones that we have. And once they've had time to carbonate and all that other such, they're stored inverted or upside down, and the tip of the bottle is dipped into like a freezing cold water, which freezes all of that dead yeast to the cork. That cork is removed, a little bit of spillage comes out, and then it's recorked and then, you know, wired, foiled, and sent on in. If you heard that, that's my mom. She's so disrespectful. I told her we were filming, and this is what happens. I'm not editing this out either. She ain't saying nothing. Okay. But she's gonna still carry on with the conversation. Anywho. So, that process we did not do. So there was no second corking. And this is just the original cork. So a lot of that dead yeast, even if I hold it up to the light, you can kind of see that sediment down to the bottom. And from what I understand, if it had been inverted, if we had gone through that process, then that would give us a more clarified sparkling wine. So we'll see that as we pour. So I'm really excited. I'm actually quite proud of myself. I'm gonna bring these a little bit closer. I'm also gonna cheat so you can get a better. All right. Not too shabby. So like I was saying, you can definitely see the color difference. Here I am hiding myself. So you can definitely see the difference in color, and also just in the clarity of it. I'm going to take that down now. Not being a wine expert by any stretch of the imagination, taste-wise, like I said, spoiler alert, I did already have a chance to try it. Even just opening this bottle, I can still smell the yeast. I let my roommate taste it. I let another one of our friends taste it. I also even let my mom kind of taste it. And nobody else picks up on that yeast as much as I do. Everybody else said it's just kind of fruity. It definitely has a great aroma. It drinks well, but all I smell is yeast. I can't knock it. I can't not smell it. But with that being said, cheers. Oh, okay.